anyone says a specific tactic is dead, they're more or less wrong. Ritson says strategy can be boiled down to 3 questions. Who are we going to target? What's our position to that target? And what's my objective? We're going to be making some pretty good guesses on the jobs to be done that we would like our target group to fulfill. But they're almost inevitably going to be wrong. Assumptions, especially at this point, are going to be killer for our marketing strategy.
Today, our guest is Mr. Joe Glover. Everybody knows who Joe is. He's my bestie, but if I was ever going to run a marketing strategy past someone, I'd run it past Joe. Not only is he got a brain the size of a fridge, he's really, really good at strategy. I actually think it's his strongest marketing skill. And part of that will be coming from him interviewing what feels like all the world's best marketers, but also he's heard about 10 million marketing talks. And he's a practitioner too. He's run lots of strategy sessions with businesses, even our own. He helps guide this business forward. Now, we're able to bring these sessions, I should say, to you for free because we have brilliant brands like Planable. We use Planable for our social media, and Planable have done a resource that you can get here, which is looking into hashtags and the use of hashtags. But I also noticed when I went on their website, since they've been acquired by SE Ranking, they've got a Black Friday deal. And I thought that might be quite exciting for anybody doing their planning for next year. You can get a package with SE Ranking, AI Ranking, and Planable all on their website at the moment. I highly recommend them. We don't say this because they're a partner. We actually use Planable. I think they are fabulous. So if you want to up your social game, your SEO game, and your GEO game, then these are the folks to work with. So with all that said, I'm going to introduce the big man himself. Hello, brother.
Hello, mate. I regularly refer to myself as the big man. So. Thank you, mate. And thank you, everyone, for being here and for being completely wonderful. You will usually be used to seeing the scene behind me, which is our webinar setup. But for today, you get the other view, which is where I live day to day on my screen. So today we're going to be going through how to build the bare minimum marketing strategy. Now, this is a talk that I've delivered in the past, but delivered it in a talk format. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be delivering it as a workshop. So by the end of the hour, we're going to be hopefully have built a bare minimum strategy that works for you and works so you've got a 1-page or a 2-pager which you can walk away with for the business. But before we get started, let me say hello, first of all. So my name is Joe Glover. I am 12,355 days old, and I'm super happy to be here. So thank you all for having me, and thank you for being here. It's really a joy. Today, as I said, we're going to be covering how to build the bare minimum strategy. But before we do, I thought I'd start with a story, because strategy is one thing, but actually why strategy is important on a human level, on a marketer's level, is just as interesting. So let's take us back to the year 2026. This was a year when I hit 2016. And this was the year I hit my marketing rock bottom. And I hit my rock bottom because I was a solo marketer. I was a solo marketer working in a small company. On this particular day, I was driving through the green hills of Ireland, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful scene, but it was also raining, so said green hills had a slight greyish hue. But it wasn't just on the outside of the car that was grey. Because inside the car, there was a storm brewing too. You see, my boss and I, we were driving to a location to run one of our events. And the scene was unhappy at best, for want of a better phrase. Being the solo marketer in said company, I was struggling. I wasn't doing my job as well as I thought I could be. And I remember turning to my boss, to my side, and I remember saying to them, I don't know how we're going to get where we want to. What we're doing as marketing doesn't seem to be landing, and you and me as a team, we have a communication problem. Now, I want to pause here for a moment and sort of think about this, because these 3 sentences are sentences that I said, but I think this is a reality that probably hits true for other marketers watching in today, particularly those operating in small teams, but frankly, those in big companies aren't always in big marketing teams either. And knowing like what you want to do, how you can communicate it, get buy-in, have people understand you, like it can be a lonely place and it can be an uncertain place. And the thing that I was lacking in that moment, amongst other things, was a strategy. Because no one really teaches you how to do marketing unless you specifically seek it out. And it's certainly not easy to get into the marketing industry these days, but you don't necessarily need a qualification in the same way as other industries do. And so you can walk into a marketing role with an idea that you're going to do some social media or copywriting or whatever it may be. But if you don't have a grounding in what marketing is and strategies which can inform your direction, then it can feel like you're just doing things. And if you're doing things, you have no way of judging whether you're working towards something, whether you're being successful, and indeed to get buy-in from your team. And so that's why this is important. And so let's speak about what strategy is. Well, the first quote comes from Michael Porter. It's a fairly classic one, but I think it's one that still reigns true, which is strategy is choosing what not to do. Now, this is important because we have a bevy of options in front of us as marketers. We could choose to do anything. And so being able to say no as well as yes becomes really, really quite important. And so strategy is choosing not what to do as much as it is about choosing what to do. And that feels really important to keep in mind. The person who I'd do a big old hat tip in this talk as well, in this slide, but then with the content that goes forward, also goes to Mark Ritson. And Ritson says strategy can be boiled down to 3 questions. Who are we going to target? What's our position to that target? And what's my objective? If you haven't done the mini MBA and you're on the fence about it, then I definitely encourage you to explore that, run by Mark Ritson, because when it comes to this strategy stuff, today we're going to present the bare minimum version. I'd say that Ritson helps you through the journey of finding a more maximal version of what marketing is and the totality of it. But the problem with building strategy is that it's loaded with so much, right? It can feel complicated and intimidating. And so when we come to build one, like sometimes, particularly if you haven't been taught how, it can feel intimidating and it can feel like you're alone. And that's why we're here to help today. So how do you build the bare minimum version? Well, let's get going. This session comes in 3 parts. The first is I'm going to introduce you to the bare minimum strategy. And then we're going to work through building one together. As mentioned in the materials before today's event, we're going to be using a custom GPT that I've built, which will take us through it. And as I say, by the end of the session, hopefully you'll have something for yourself which you can use. And then we can talk through your questions using the Q&A feature found down below on the side even. Old habits die hard. So part 1, let's introduce you to the bare minimum marketing strategy. And this is it. This is the bare minimum marketing strategy as I see it. Now, there is a caveat here. The point is not to have a comprehensive thing which speaks to every aspect of marketing. No, this is about taking you from 0 to 1. This is about taking Joe upset in the car next to his boss without a marketing plan, just doing stuff, and taking you to a place where you have clarity, you have consistency. And so what we have here is a number of steps that we're going to go through today to bring that clarity and consistency to your efforts. At the top, we start with a business or a marketing goal. The idea here is that we know that what we want to achieve. Second, we have the strategic elements, the problem you solve, who you're trying to help, and the idea that you're trying to build in their brain. This is known as positioning, and we'll come on to it later. And finally, we've got the tactical steps that we start to speak through when we know the strategic elements. We want to actually implement this and bring it to real life. This is awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, and advocacy. These 5 stages are important and they give purpose to your TikToks, your Instagrams, etc. But we'll come to that in a bit. So let's speak about each of these things. Behind door number 5, by the way, Dominic, was advocacy. not just my face. So on the business or marketing goal is pretty self-explanatory. We'll get into that in a moment. We've got diagnosis and strategic elements, and then we've got the tactical stuff. The important thing for all of this when we're thinking about our strategies is that, like, we don't do this in a silo. We don't take a moment and build a strategy and then that's it, and we never communicate it, and it just lives in a document by itself. A strategy has to be a living, breathing document that you refer to regularly. It's one that you return to, but it's also one that you communicate with the rest of the team, so they can come on the journey with you when it comes to understanding the strategy that you're trying to do. Thank you, James, for moving my face. That's great. We're figuring out Wistia as well. I love Wistia, by the way. A fabulous platform and fabulous people. So as I say, we need an easy way to articulate what we do. We're ignoring some factors that will often sit as part of a marketing plan, such as product and pricing, and we're ignoring a lot of nuance. Again, this is from 0 to 1, not from 1 to 100. And that's important to point out, because a fair criticism of the bare minimum marketing strategy is akin to a communication strategy. And that criticism would be fair, but particularly when you have an absence of any form of strategy, then I would suggest this is way better than that. So now we're familiar with the parts of the strategy, then let's work through it. Let's blooming work through it together and create something that you can walk away with today in a workshop. So right now, you will see on your screen, there will be a button which would have hopefully have appeared, but you can also access it through the QR code. This is to a GPT, a custom GPT that I've built, which will hopefully help us guide through today's session. Now, the thing that is a asterisk on this GPT, as mentioned in the materials before, is that you're going to need a paid account to be able to get the fullest amount from it, because after a little while, it's going to limit your responses. So if you don't have a paid ChatGPT account, that's absolutely fine. Get some pens out, get some paper out, and we'll work through it together when it comes to filling in the strategy. We've got Lana in the chat saying, where can I get Joe's sweater? Maybe we may well do that. Sarah, you're right. We'll get some stuff. So hopefully you've all had time now to load up the bare minimum strategy GPT. You'll see on there's a button that says click here to start building. So I'd like you to click that button. And then once you've done that, then we'll return to the screen while we speak through how to build a business or marketing goal. So the first thing to say when we come to the goals section of the bare minimum marketing strategy is that us as a marketing function, we are subservient to the business's goals. That means to say that if the business has a large goal, then we sit underneath that. As a marketing function, we are there to deliver the business's goals. And so we should think about what the business wants from us, not just set a goal which is relevant for marketing only. Marketing doesn't operate in a silo. It operates as part of a company, of course. That being said, there is a caveat to that, which is that quite often in organizations which are going from 0 to 1, as I was in my small company, the marketing goal is the same as the business goal. That's because the goal of the business will be to hopefully drive more clients and more sales, etc., etc. And so in that case, it may well be that rather than being subservient, your marketing goal is the same as your business goal. Only you know whether that's relevant for you in your context, but I think it's important to make the point here that as marketers, we've got to have our eyes and ears open to what the leadership of our companies want before we start running away and drawing our own strategies with our own goals. Now, one of the traps of setting a goal is that quite often we'll start speaking about goals like this. We'll say words like, I would like to get myself out there a little bit more, or I would like to do some social media. And those are fantastic statements, but what they are not is goals. These are statements of intent, but they do not give you any direction. And so the best way that I've found over the course of time to set a goal, which is simple, easy to understand, and bring to life is SMART goals. Now, a lot of you will be familiar with this. It's not here to blow your brains, but it's here to help. SMART stands for specific, measurable, ambitious, relevant, and time related. What we mean is by our goal that we're able to craft something which makes sense and give us direction in a very specific way. So to give a few examples here, what we've got an example. So instead of saying we want to get ourselves out there, we'll say from our current place of 100 visits per day, I'd like to move this number to 1,000 websites per day by the 17th of November. All of a sudden, instead of getting yourself out there, you've got a very specific thing to go after. Instead of saying, I'd like to do some social media, you can say, like to have 80 conversations with our ideal customers by the end of the year via LinkedIn with our target audience. And instead of saying, can we just sell some more tickets? We can say, I'd like to increase the conversion rate on our website from 1 to 2% by June 2023 in this case. There's some watch outs when we're setting our goals. The first is that inevitably when we're setting our goals, the first thing that people would love to do is sort of say, I just love more sales. That is an enviable thing to do, and that is something we would all like to do. But quite often along the way in setting our goals, there will be a series of milestones or landmarks which enable us to hit more sales. And so I'd encourage you to think about those things rather than just saying, I'd like 10 more sales. Think about, I would like 50 more conversations with ideal customers. Instead of saying, I would like 10 more sales, I'd like 1,000 more people to visit my website. Whatever it may be, the steps along the way which help you get to that eventual sale. The second watch out is that sometimes folks will say, we'll create a marketing strategy or a goal, and they'll go back to their boss and they'll say, hey, look, I've created this strategy. And the boss will scratch their head. They'll look at you and go, well, that's not what I wanted. I didn't want that. And so with that thought in mind, then the real encouragement here is like, just take a pause, take a moment, speak with the rest of your team, and understand the things that they would like to achieve through their goals. And the last thing that is a watch out when we're setting our goals is that folks love to set too many. And this isn't a criticism, this is an awareness thing. If you're setting yourself 10 different goals, those aren't goals, that's a list. And if you have a list, you're not going to be able to focus and prioritize on these things. So I'd recommend no more than 1 to 3 goals. And you may choose to build out a new plan for each of those things, which enables you to hit that specific goal. But please don't give yourself too much to do because and as we said in the quote the other day on our new podcast, You'll See a Momentor, the biggest enemy of your number 1 goal is your number 2 goal. And so keeping that focus and not having too many goals is absolutely important. So we're going to head to the GPT and we're going to have the opportunity to start to use our own goals. So I'm going to be doing this in the background with you. So it's on screen. So we've got click here to start building. So hopefully you've clicked that already. And because I'm going to be working through this with you, what I've decided to do is I've created a fictionalized version of an accountancy business, because I think that will probably hopefully be relatively easy for us to understand together. And so I've clicked click here to start building, and hopefully you are in the same place. For me, I've written this before, and so I'm going to copy and paste it, but I've decided by the 30th of June 2025, I'd like to increase monthly inbound small business client inquiries from 8 per month to 20 per month, so we can stabilize recurring revenue and reduce the founder's reliance on unpredictable project work. So what we have here is we have a start point, which is our 8. We have an end point, which is our 20. We have a date, and we have a reason for doing this. And so I'll just pop that into the GPT, and it will tidy it up for me, hopefully. Cool. And then we'll be able to move on. So let's cool. So I'm just gonna see in the chat before we get going. Cool. Nice. It seems like I'm not seeing too much in the chat of folks struggling, so I'm going to continue. If you do have anything as you'd like to pick up on as we go, then please do pop it in the chat. We know that we've got a 12-second delay between what's live and what happens in the chat, and so with that in mind, we won't pick it up straight away, but we're working on that. Cool. Right. Let me find my place. So we've set a goal in the bare minimum strategy straight away, and so we know what we'd like to achieve. So let's move on to the strategic elements, because these are there you go, we've got some stuff. So Vicky, it doesn't matter if you choose 5 or 5.1, and can we have the original prompt so we can copy along with you, please? So hopefully the GPT will take you along, Nick, and place you into your own context. The way that this is built is it has some knowledge in the background, which will enable you to follow along, hopefully based on this talk. So let's head into the strategic elements. So the first thing that we want to do is really solve a problem for the customer. And so often what we do is we call this market orientation, the idea that we're not actually spending a lot of time thinking about ourselves. We're spending a lot of time thinking about our customers. Now, this is really important. And again, giving the plug to the mini MBA, Mark Ritson will spend a lot of that first module speaking about market orientation. And he says it's one of the most important things, because so often we will spend our time thinking about our companies, but rarely will we take the time to understand our customers. When we stop thinking about ourselves, we start thinking about them. That becomes the unlock for so many businesses. Fundamentally, this is their problem, and like it's a small tail, but it's the type of thing which I think does tell a lot. That like quite often we'll see phrases that come out in our own marketing which sort of says words to the effect of "we're so excited to announce" or whatever it may be. And I've used that phrase in the past in our copy and stuff like that. The biggest unlock for me is like going, why do people care why I'm excited to launch a specific thing? Actually, more specifically, the person reading that should be interested why it's going to benefit them. It's a small shift, but it's the type of thing where we move from caring about ourselves to caring about our customers, caring about the problems that we solve for them. And the way that we achieve finding out what our customers want, well, we have to do market research. We have to start from a place of understanding the customer, the market, and not about understanding our product. And there's a few ways that we can start to achieve this. The first is that we go out and we ask our customers, we speak to them. And this is really, really important. And James and I, we do our best to do this in our own business, to attend events and sort of just ask the question, so why are you here? And, how's it going? And we do it with stuff like our survey every year. But some of the best days that we've ever had are when we've arranged like 15 interviews in a single day and just chatted with a bunch of folks, and it's illuminated and disproved and proved some of our theories about how we're helping the marketing meetup community. And so I can't begin to encourage you enough to step away from your keyboard and just start speaking to your customers and asking them what's going on in your world. The second thing you could do is that you go into places where your customers are and you just watch them. You watch them do the thing which your product or service solves, and you just see how they interact with it. This is called ethnographic research, and what this means is observing people in their natural environment doing the thing. And so it will become immediately apparent that the way that you intended for your good or service to be used is being used in quite a different way. And if that's true, then perhaps your good or service is solving a problem in a different way to how you first intended. So ethnographic, just heading out into the real world and watching people interact with your thing, is going to be really important. The final thing you could do, or not the final thing, but another useful thing, particularly when you're going from 0 to 1, is look out for secondary sources. So Google reviews are a landmine for this kind of stuff, a gold mine for this sort of stuff. So if you see your competitors and you see their Google reviews and you see the things that people value and that are speaking about, their social media comments, etc., and using that to inform what their customers want and what your customers want, then you can start to use their language rather than in your own. All of a sudden, you have a far greater idea of the problems that you're solving for your customers, rather than just starting from the place of your product. Another way to put this is a theory called jobs to be done, which was popularized by Clayton Christensen. The idea of jobs to be done is your customers are not just buying products or services from you, they're hiring you in the proverbial sense to help them achieve a goal, solve a problem, or fulfill a need. And jobs to be done can be broken down into several different categories. You've got functional needs, you've got emotional needs, you've got social, contextual, pain points, desired outcomes, alternatives, etc. The idea behind functional is that your product or service is helping someone achieve a specific job. Emotional will be they use your product or service to make them feel better or worse or cooler or less cool or whatever it may be. They wish to feel cool. And the social cues would be stuff like how that then interacts with their wider peer groups, etc., etc. There's lots of different ways of approaching jobs to be done. So as we head into the GPT once more, we're going to start thinking not so much about our product or service, but about the folks that we're trying to help, the problem that you're solving, the problem that they have, that our product or service is solving. So let's head into the GPT once more. So we've moved into step 2, the problem that they solve, the jobs to be done. The GPT has prompted us to fill in 3 gaps: the functional, the emotional, and the social goals. There is also a prompt here, and it's a watch out, because in this context of this session today, we're going to be making some pretty good guesses on the jobs to be done that we would like our target group to fulfill. But they're almost inevitably going to be wrong. Assumptions, especially at this point, are going to be killer for our marketing strategy. And so with that in mind, I would like you to fill in your functional, your emotional, and your social jobs to be done, if you can think of them. But then what I would also love you to do is commit in this session to doing a bit of market research. And you can choose what that would be, but I'd like you to pop that in the GPT underneath the 3 jobs to be done, and say what you're going to do in a market research capacity to validate or invalidate the assumptions that we're making here. For the benefit of this session, what I've said with our accountants is the functional need that our folks in the market are trying to fulfill is our clients are trying to stay compliant, avoid mistakes, and keep their bookkeeping or tax up to date. So that's like a very functional thing. They basically don't want to go to jail. On the emotional front, they want to feel like they're in control, they're nice and confident, they're less stressed about unexpected tax bills. Again, if any of you have ever run a business and know that the stress of guessing how much your tax bill is going to be, it's not fun. And so, like, on an emotional level, it reduces anxiety. And on a social level, they want to appear competent. They want to appear competent to their investors, their staff, and their partners. So these are our jobs to be done that an accountant will fulfill. And what I've committed to doing after today's session is I'm going to go commit 5 customer interviews with existing clients to understand how they relate to these. And I'm also going to review 20 Google reviews of competing local accountants to validate my assumptions. So we'll pop this in there, and the GPT will do its biz. And it will probably tell me I've done a good job, because ChatGPT is such a sycophant. There we go. So cool. Let's go to step number 3. The GPT will be available after today's session as well. So if you find yourself falling behind or wanting to revisit this, then you absolutely can after today's session as well. So let's head here. Before we do, I'm just going to chat. I'm just making sure in the chat feature that everything's looking all right. That is the bad thing about the GPT, that sometimes we will get different formats and questions back. Hopefully they're enough in the ballpark that they feel appropriate. If they don't, then we can revisit it. The lovely thing is this living and breathing, right? So let's head to who are we trying to help? So we know the problems that we solve on a jobs to be done basis, and now we're trying to understand who we're trying to help. Now, often the way that we'll approach this is by having something called personas or ICPs. They're largely similar. They do have differences, of course, they have differences, but they are largely similar. And what we're doing with personas or ICPs is, generally speaking, we're describing a person or a buying group who we're going to try and sell to, a fictionalized version of a human being or buying group that we're going to try and sell our product or service to. Now, there's a watch out when we build our personas, because a persona does our best. So in the case of a traditional one, we might call it Clever James. And Clever James is a business owner who is 30 years old. He lives in Cambridgeshire. He runs a small business that does copywriting, and Clever James wants to have an accountant that doesn't send him to jail or something like that. Now, what I've done with that is describe something which is demographically useful, but falls into a trap. And the trap that it falls into is that when I chose to define Clever James, I said he's like 30 years old. And like, what relevance does a 30-year-old have to how we choose to market to James? In the example on your screen right now, you can see that person 1 and person 2, Prince Charles and Ozzy Osbourne, have more or less exactly the same demographic makeup. They're both English people born in the same year with the same amount of children. They're both wealthy. They both like skiing. They both like dogs. But of course, they're radically different people. And so when we start to describe our ICPs or our personas, I'd really encourage you to step away from this idea of demographics being the first place to start with. Something we'll often fall into the trap of is sort of saying like, all of Gen Z is the same. Of course, all of Gen Z isn't the same. They just happen to be born at the same time. And so with that thought in mind, like, let's step away from the demographics and start heading into something that is more useful instead. And so the things which feel more useful, and this might be a little bit small on your screen, so I'm going to speak through it. Oh, look at James. He's doing that and making it bigger on the screen and everything, so it's wonderful. But there can be a series of questions that we start to answer. The first is stuff like psychographics. So how do they think? What matters to these people? What do they expect from our brand? What's their buying behaviors, their product uses, their emotional drivers? What situation will they be in when they're looking to buy our product or service? And then, yes, of course, include demographics as well. This isn't me telling you not to include demographics, but what it is saying is that shouldn't be our starting place. And so by building out an ICP based on the thoughts in people's minds, how they choose to buy, how they'll use your product, the emotion that goes into these things, the situation they're in when they're buying from you, and also, yes, some demographic stuff, we start to build a much richer version of an ICP or a persona, which gives us something to market at, to market to. So let's start asking ourselves these questions instead. The second thing that we want to be considering beyond this is that there will be a bunch of people who we build out in our ICPs and in our personas that still retain a lot of the same characteristics across lots and lots of different groups. And so what we want to be able to do is bring this down to an even smaller group if we can. And what we call these is segments. And these segments are folks who sort of sit in the same sort of characteristics, etc., but there'll be a specific smaller group that you want to specifically go after. Now, if I was going to give you an equation on who to specifically target, then I think, and this is a bit callous, this is a bit commercial, but hey, marketing is about making money as much as it is anything else. We can speak about how many folks are in the segment, what their spending power is, and how easy they are to reach. And hopefully that will give you a great group of people to start building your marketing activity around. Rather than saying 30-year-olds, we've got a very rich picture of people who you know are going to be able to purchase from you your product or service. So again, in the workshop scenario, we're going to head back into the GPT for this. And so for my accountants, we've been prompted to give who we would like to reach. So who they are in terms of, are they a small business, the industry, the stage of business that they're at, the size, their owner profile, their key traits or behaviors. So how do they behave with money? Are they proactive, overstretch, etc.? Their motivations, so what they care about when it comes to buying your product or service, what they need from you now. So the GPT is giving some examples right there. And how many of these folks are existing in your market? So here it says approach local or online TAM. So for those unfamiliar with TAM, what this means is it's a total addressable market. What this means is the amount of folks that you can realistically reach with your marketing efforts. So we know, roughly speaking, how many folks that we can go after. And like, approximate this, it's really for the sake of the example, but hopefully this will give you a really great guidance to building an ICP that matters. So in the example of the accountant, we've said that we're going to go after UK-based service-based micro business owners with 1 to 10 employees who handle their own books but are currently hitting the limits. And like, I bet there's a bunch of folks who know that pain. The key traits are that they hate financial admin, they avoid bookkeeping until deadlines. That's me. They use spreadsheet or messy tools. That's me. Often miss VAT or tax opportunities. Yes. Respond strongly to practical, calm advice. Yes, please. These people want clarity and simplicity, value trusted long-term partners, prefer fixed fee, and are efficient. Prefer efficiency over apps. Why they need us now? They're growing just enough that DIY bookkeeping is now risky and could mean a mixed deadline or tax error, could cost them thousands. And how many are in the market? Well, there's tens of thousands of UK micro businesses. And so there's lots of different folks that we can target on that basis. So we're going to input that into the GPT here. And we've got, James saying, oh no, that's me. And yes, it's absolutely relatable. Cool. So what we have here is step 3 complete. So let's stop the share here and let's head back to the slides. If anyone has any comments or concerns, please do drop them in the chat. I've got an eye on it. It seems like folks are diligently working away in the background. And so that's great, but I'm here to help you. I want you to win. So let's head into the final of the strategic elements, which is the idea you're trying to build in the customer's mind and what you offer. And so often we will call this positioning. And the best way that I can describe positioning comes from this quote from Chris Anderson, who said, the purpose of a talk is to build an idea in the audience's mind. And I think we can shift this in the marketer's context to say the purpose of a marketing effort is to build an idea in the audience's mind or the customer's mind about what our business or service does. And as I say, this leads to an idea of something called positioning, which is the process of establishing memorable perception of a brand or product in the minds of target customers. What this means is if we do positioning well, we end up with an output of something called salience, which is a word donated by Byron Sharp to the marketing community. What this means is that in a moment, a buying moment, if a product sort of comes to mind, something which is mentally available to the customer, they're more likely to buy that product or service if it's also physically available to them. So what we're aiming to achieve in our positioning is salience, the idea that, as I say, when a buying moment occurs, you are the brand that they think of. Mark Ritson speaks about this in a slightly different way, but is one which really struck my imagination, which is that nobody, as much as I wish they would, walks down the street thinking about the marketing meetup. They're thinking about their bills. They're thinking about their kids' club that night. They're thinking about that great discussion that they had with their partner that day. They're thinking about where they can get coffee. A human being is not necessarily thinking about our brand 100% of the time. In fact, Mark Ritson goes so far as to say that you have 3 brain cells dedicated to your brand or service in the mind of your customer. And if you only have 3 brain cells dedicated to your customer, to your business, then you need to choose what those brain cells are going to be. You need to choose what your positioning is going to be to have those 3 brain cells dedicated to exactly what you wish them to be for your business. And so we can do this in 2 ways. So we end up with a positioning statement, but a positioning statement will often have 2 additional things, which are the idea of distinctive assets and you being differentiated. And what do I mean by that? When I speak about being distinctive, I speak about you, your brand, showing up as itself. Byron Sharp says, showing up in the shape of itself. So these are stuff like what makes your brand visually distinctive, makes it you. What's the tone of voice that your brand uses, and what are you for? So to give some examples of what distinctiveness could be, or distinctive assets could be, you could think about your brand palette like Tiffany does with their blue. You could think about your logo like Manchester United. You could think about your cups like Starbucks does. You could think about color palette like Google does, or even, and I love this example because I think it's a really, really good one. You know, when you walk down the high street and you smell Lush before you see it, but you know it's Lush, that is a distinctive brand asset, the smell of Lush. So what does your business have the equivalent of that is distinctive? What we also have is the opportunity to be differentiated. Now, a lot of folks will speak about differentiation, but actually what we're not speaking about is a USP. We're not saying you are unique in the market, because I think it's almost impossible to be unique. But what it is possible to be is to be different. And to be different, then we need to consider what makes us different from the alternatives. And so here, what we're going to say is, how do you solve the problem differently? And you can choose these metrics. So this will be too small on your screen, even with me in this view. But on the bottom here, we've got the example of Asana and Monday.com. And with Asana and Monday.com, what Monday.com have done is they've chosen 5 metrics that says meets requirements, ease of use, ease of admin, quality of support, and ease of doing business with. So these are the things which they have chosen to be differentiated on, and they have said to the market that those are the things that they are different to Asana on, despite offering a relatively similar product. And in this case, they've chosen to show themselves as better than Asana on each of those factors. So that's the difference between distinctiveness and differentiation. So when it comes to building our positioning statement and building positioning in general, we're once again going to be returning to our ChatGPT. And so the GPT in this instance has prompted us with many things, but it said we want to get to a point where we can say our brand helps a specific target group, so our segments, which we've defined in our last step, to achieve whichever benefit, so they can achieve a desired outcome or feeling. So what it hasn't done in this instance for me is prompt me with like distinctive assets or differentiated. That can be something you hold in your brain, or that can be something which you pop into the GPT if you prefer it. But in this case, for me, what I've decided to do is follow the prompt. And so I have said, Clear Path Accounting helps overwhelmed business owners stay compliant and organized so they can run their business with confidence instead of stress. So that was based on everything that we built in our segmentation, everything that we built from our research. So we end up with a positioning idea. And I hope in your context, in what you're filling out here, you're getting what you need as well in terms of a positioning idea that starts to solidify everything you've built up to this point. I'm just going to return to the chat. Fiona asks whether there'll be a recording. Yes, there will be a recording. Nicola says, clicked out the GPT. It's in the top right of the screen. There we go. And Lana says mustache, but we'll definitely catch up. So that's great. So thank you. Ooh. Let's head back into the slides for the final section, which is all about the tactical implementation of what we're doing. So we've built out the strategic elements, we've got a goal, and now we're speaking about tactics. Now, so how do we define the difference between strategy and tactics? Strategy is the elements that we've just spoken about so far. Tactics are how you bring those things to life when it comes to our actual marketing efforts. So for those of you who have watched along, you'll notice at this point that I haven't mentioned TikTok, I haven't mentioned Instagram, email marketing or whatever. They fit into what we would describe as tactical implementations. My personal favorite is carrier pigeon. And actually, there's a semi-serious point there, which is like, if anyone says a specific tactic is dead, they're more or less wrong, because these tactics of our job can be used in so many different ways, and whether it's tele or carrier pigeon. Imagine if you had a carrier pigeon arrive with a pamphlet. You'd definitely pay attention to that. And so, like, there's this time and space for each of these things. Anyway, I digress. The danger of these things, these tactics, is that we end up kind of just doing them. So we start to ignore everything that we've built this place so far. And instead we just say, okay, on Monday, I'm going to do some SEO. On Tuesday, I'm going to do Instagram. On Wednesday, we're going to do an event. On Thursday, we're going to do LinkedIn. And Friday, well, we're going to get down on Friday. And that's a joke for the millennials in the room. Shout out to Rebecca Black. The thing is, when we have these channels and we start speaking about these things, the thing that it lacks is purpose and clarity. Now, if we go back to the beginning of today's story, when I was that marketing manager and I was sat there alone, I would just sit on Instagram and I'd do a post on Instagram, and I would not know why I was doing a post on Instagram, except I thought it looked good. I thought that was what my job was. And the thing that lacked was purpose, and it lacked clarity. And that's why a very basic funnel in this instance is useful, because it gives us 5 stages to go at to give purpose to our activity. It gives us awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, and advocacy. Awareness is making people aware of our product or service. Consideration is when they're aware of us and they're in a buying moment, they start to consider you as part of the pack. At the purchase stage, we're making it as easy as possible for them to continue to buy from us and buy our product or service. At the retention, we're trying to keep the customers that we have. At the advocacy stage, we're trying to turn those customers that we have into our biggest, loudest cheerleaders, because at the end of the day, word of mouth is going to be our most potent form of marketing, whether that's through UGC, user-generated content, reviews, or just plain old word of mouth and people telling each other. So what you can start to do with your marketing tactics is start to break down your activity and start to assign specific channels to do specific things. So you could say that your TikTok is purely there for awareness, but actually we're going to do some TikTok at the consideration phase as well. And so what you might see there is your awareness-based stuff is far more about like broad reach, but at the consideration phase, it's far more about driving people to your website, for example, to buy, or using TikTok Shop, to get people to purchase in-app. You may use your newsletter as a consideration tool. And then at the retention and advocacy, you might have a loyalty scheme, and then some sort of testimonial bonus if someone decides to advocate for you. But even better than that, what we can start to do, rather than just say that we're going to put them into these stages, is then we can place a goal next to each of these respective tactics. And what we can say is that at each stage, we know what we're going to measure. And so we start to measure these things, and we can start to speak about the success of our campaigns in a way that other folks start to understand whether or not we're doing a good job, and can get buy-in for the reason why you're spending your time on TikTok is because we're trying to increase brand awareness, which will help us reach a specific set of people, which will help us achieve our business goal. You can see why the bare minimum strategy starts to ladder up from the tactical stage, but likewise, you have to ladder down from the business goal to be able to build it. So what we end up with is 3 levels. We've got level 1, which is without purpose. We're doing SEO. But instead, on level 2, you could say we're doing SEO for reasons of awareness. But on level 3, you say we're doing SEO for reasons of awareness, and we'll judge success by growth of organic search. all of a sudden your tactical outlook, your tactical implementation has gone from something where you're saying we're going to do some stuff to saying we're going to do some stuff with purpose and with goals. And that gives you the opportunity to start getting buy-in from the rest of your team. The important thing about the funnel is that what we can also do with these 5 stages is we can start to look at our business, and we can start to say, oh wait, loads of people are aware of us actually, but nobody's buying. And so if we realize that kind of stuff, what we can start to go is, okay, well, maybe we've got a problem with our purchase tactics. So maybe we make a shift there. And if we make a shift there, then that's the thing which is going to increase the amount of money that we make as a business. This gives you the opportunity to know where you should be placing your energy in pursuit of hitting your marketing goals. Because ultimately, as we break it down on these 5 stages, there's a lot of stuff to do right there. And so being able to prioritize your actions is going to be really important. The other thing to note here is that if you are going to prioritize actions or you're not sure where to start, always start from the purchase stage and work your way back through consideration and awareness, rather than starting with a big, broad thing at the top, but with no way for people to buy from you. Especially when you're trying to get those quick wins from the rest of your team on how to on activity, then starting with the purchase stage gives you the best opportunity to get buy-in from the rest of the team. And so we have it. We have the bare minimum marketing strategy, and we're going to return to the GPT for the final stage, which is building out our own tactics. Now, this is the part of the GPT which takes the most amount of time. And so with that in mind, I've again copied in an example that I worked through earlier. And given the relatively short amount of time that we have remaining, although I'm happy to hang out afterwards, I would suggest that you work through your own tactical implementation, which will give you what you need in terms of tactical implementation. So the GPT is doing its thing. The only thing I want to highlight at the end here is that the GPT will subsequently bring everything together for you. So let's head in. So I've laid out the tactics. It's spat whatever it has done back out from there, and it says, would you like to review any tactics before moving to the final steps? So nope. Let's go. And what it will do is it will start to bring together the strategy for me on the bare minimum strategy. What you can also do is it will give you a downloadable version that you can sit in a PDF and pop to the rest of your team as well if you ask for it. So it is doing those things. And what we can see on screen is the strategy that we've built out together over the course of this hour. So final few words on the strategy. So what we've done over the course of today is we started with a business goal. We started to build out the strategic elements, and we've also broken those tactics down. And that's it. And so I just want to say thank you. And that's the end. I thought there was more there, so I was going to end up in a monologue, but I'm not going to do that. So so that is everything. But thank you all so much for listening. I hope that's been useful. It's always a lot of fun to put this together, and it's the first time with the GPT guiding things. So